But if you are watching this, welcome to episode 1 of Hot Copy, a live weekly roundtable discussion between working copy pros on what's happening now, what we're talking about, and today that is AI and the new copy playbook. I'm here with Roxana Gramada. Roxana, do you want to do a quick intro?
Course. So I am, like Katie Peacock said, my name is Roxana Gramada. I am a positioning and messaging strategist from Bucharest, Romania, where it's right now 5 in the afternoon and 10 minutes past the hour. And I can't wait to talk to you, Katie, about AI and how it's been impacting my work lately because I've been feeling it. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. And if there's actually something that I can, rip off of your experience.
So really, I was thinking hot coffee for me because it's the morning and I'm usually drinking coffee at this time. But for you, if maybe you need like a cocktail or something
Uh,
more 5 p.m. appropriate.
it's chocolate time for me, chocolate and tea time. Yes.
Okay, so as you said, Roxana, we're talking about AI and the new copy playbook, and this is something that I think you and I have talked about a couple times already. Excited to dive into kind of the different segments that we had on for today. We're going to talk about wildest AI generated copy we've seen this week, where humans add value now, whether or not AI can ever really sound like you, ways we're experimenting with AI in our own workflows, and then quick react, hot or not, to AI headlines of the week. So diving straight in.
I love your
Let,
slides, by the way.
oh, thank you. What would you say, Roxanne, is the wildest AI generated copy you've seen this week?
Wildest is a strong word. And if you have a better example, you'd better just cut me off. But here, yesterday, I was looking for content development prompts on this AI that I subscribe to. I'm not going to name it because I don't recommend it. Anyway, so I was looking at this one prompt that was going to help you generate content based on what's going on in the news. Okay. And as I was going through LinkedIn this morning, there was one post that specifically followed those steps. I mean, it was not redacted in the typical AI kind of a post with lots of emoticons and lots of bullets and all that, but it was definitely following that format. And I was like, well, I might just not have been the only person seeing that. Somebody's actually taking action. And it was Eastern Europe being Eastern Europe and Romania being Romania, religious celebrations are very important here. So it's the anniversary of very particular and revered saint, and people line up by the thousands. And there was a comment about that, somebody was making that piece of news relevant for their business feed there. That's the wildest I've seen today. How about
So,
you?
well, I just want to ask a follow-up. So I'm curious, I think it's interesting that you realized it was AI not because of the writing style, but because you recognized the prompt. So kind of like the trendiness of
Yeah.
the prompt. Was
But
it
also the
effective?
language, because, there is a difference between how we speak as people and how AI speaks. And obviously that AI had not been trained to follow the tone of voice, or there was still room for improvement there. And you can say, because it's not real, because it kind of sounds like translating books from English to Romanian. It's not exactly real Romanian. There's something a bit, I'm going to say, cardboardy about it.
Mhm.
And that's how I could tell. I had two red flags, and I might just be wrong altogether, but I think not. There. That's my
I
example.
think I think cardboardy is a great term for it, because the example I was thinking of it was in a Facebook group, a pretty big Facebook group in the online coaching space. It's called Alpha Femme by the coach Melanie Ann Layer. Very big into energetics, the energetics of business coaching. And there's officially no promo in the group. So what you see is a lot of, inspirational posts with a promotional subtext. And um, I noticed a few AI posts in there this morning, or what I am assuming were AI posts. And I find it interesting because it isn't necessarily those obvious AI tells, but in a group that is specifically about kind of transmitting your energy, you do just feel like a different impact of what seems like an AI-driven post. And for me, the big tells were three single word sentences, in a row.
Uh-huh.
Um, just and almost that having a similar flow. I think especially when you see multiple posts in a row, they're following the same flow, it's easy to roll your eyes and say, like, you
Yeah.
know, the sameness that leads to that cardboard impression. But yeah, it's definitely missing a certain sense of liveliness that you would expect to feel from human written copy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that you're noticing the one word sentences, that used to be very cool when we were doing it, a few years. And I'm still thinking that, we can probably still use it better than AI does, you open Apple's website, there will be, one word sentences. They're supposed to be mighty when played well,
Mhm.
mightiest yet, or whatever, So maybe that's just poor execution. And when the execution is poor, when an expert has not supervised, at least you kind of feel it.
Ooh, perfect transition into our next topic, which is our deep dive of this week, the new copy playbook, where humans add value now. So, Roxana, I mean, you mentioned not having an expert involved in that process. What's your take on where humans add value now?
Hmm. I think this is something that everybody should be spending time on, as in where are you as a person adding value right now? And it's easier to see it perhaps in our personal lives, especially when you have children or you have a family or whatever it is that you are doing in your personal life, in your relationships, there is a certain value there. Now in business, especially when for for people who have their own business, especially for entrepreneurs who are very driven, okay? And sometimes the idea is a work in progress. And you're like, so how am I really adding value here? But for whom exactly? Until you find that perfect product market fit. And I tend to be biased and take the conversation there because this is what I do for a living. I figure out how people, add value and what is their promise, what's the UVP, and better yet, can I break it to a USB? I mean, can I elevate it to a USB? So I will always look what's this for? What's this good for? What's the promise here? And I am going to say that there are ways that humans add value that are probably underappreciated now and are going to become very appreciated in the future. And that there are ways that we can probably add value with AI, and that we are still on a learning curve. We're still under the spell of what is this big thing? It seems to be more than just words, because right now people are actually getting some kind of use of it, even if you're just translating, even if you're just proofreading, even if you're just developing a basic draft, so on and so forth. So where do humans add value? So in the realm of working with intelligence and using AI, so let's say consultants, right? Um, when you prompt AI, whatever, choose your AI, okay? And you say, please develop a content plan for me. For I do this and this is my value proposition, this is my audience. Please develop 10 different angles, give me posts for each, so on and so forth, right? And then when you look at the actual thing, if you are not an expert in what that person is doing. If you are not the actual person doing the job and knowing the details of it, it looks like, oh my God, it's like it's legit. It sounds real. It's passable, I mean, I'm gonna go to market with it, right? But when you run this by an actual expert in that field, they will start seeing they will start reading let's say the mice copy, okay? They will start reading, seeing the fine cracks in the wall. And things that are completely invisible for the untrained eye will become huge faux pas. Okay.
Mm.
I could go on with this, but I feel like, do you want to add to this? I have an example that I want to add.
I would love to hear your example, but I completely agree. In my previous career as an academic editor, one of the questions I found myself asking over and over again is like, what does this actually mean? I think nowadays we call it like word salad, right? It's a bunch of words that kind of sounds good. It makes sense on a superficial level, but if you're a subject matter expert and you are putting those words together and really trying to make sense of the argument, it falls apart. It doesn't have any substance. And I think that that is where, when we're reading and specifically when we're editing AI written copy, we have to be asking that question, what does this actually mean? Do these abstract concepts translate into an actual, you know, physical thing or a concept that is real?
Mm-hmm. So I completely agree. And here's where I can probably add a very recent example. So sometimes I contribute to this magazine in Romania. It's called A-List. I love it. It's kind of like Vogue, but Romania is not a country that's big enough for Vogue. So we have A-List that appears every 3 months. So I've been a contributor for maybe a year and a half. And now you're changing the screen, and I'm wondering what you're going
Sorry,
to.
I didn't mean to do
What?
that. I was trying to get it so that we could have both our slide, but I think I'm just gonna go, oh,
That's okay. I
I
mean,
wanted to have you. There we go. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it how it is. Please
no,
continue. So you're,
it's a very good idea, actually. You know what? Because I would love to see your face on screen and also my pretty face if we're going to be a
do
bit.
you know how to get us next to the slides layout? Here, let's try this
I'm
one.
going to give you time to look for it because we have time. That's okay.
Oh,
I would probably just pull at the thing at the side and pull to the left of the screen and see if the faces get bigger.
sharing pause, resume, layout, side by side.
This is where we were before.
Yeah. But okay, I've chosen a layout. Now execute on that, please.
Hmm.
Do you still see only the...
Yeah, I do. I see deep dive. Oh, now I see
Oh,
you.
oh, I think
Check this
I think
out.
that maybe it's
You were
better.
there, without a background.
Which do we like better? This one or this one?
I like that you're there. Oh, I love this too. I
Okay.
just first
Oh,
since we're
is it
both
gone?
talking, it would be nice if we had both.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so right now you see me and the
Yes, that's what I do. See, yes, I see you and your screen.
Zoom. Weird. Okay, I only see the screen now.
Hmm. And now I see
What happened?
you and against the background of the screen.
And when you're speaking, you also see
No,
just
when I
me.
speak, yes, the change does not the screen does not change when I speak.
Hmm. All right, let's keep going. Um, and I'll figure that out for next time.
Uh-huh, that's okay. So if you look to the left, where I don't know how to do it on screen, but if you see that, there's this the two of us,
Yeah.
it's to the right, right? And between that and the presentation, there is a bar. It's invisible, but you could actually pull. Can you play with that? And does
I
it
don't
translate?
know.
No? Okay. Now I'm happy to go back to where we left off.
So sorry, you were speaking to your contributions in this magazine.
Yes. So every 3 months, A-List magazine, which is like a version of Vogue for Romania, right? Comes out, and I have been a contributor for more than a year and a half. And just to be fully honest and give the positives as well as the negatives, I was running out of ideas for what to write about. So I basically asked Claude. These are my past. And I said, listen, I'm a writer for A-List magazine. These are the titles of my previous contributions. Give me 10 ideas of what I should write about next. And it gave me 10 ideas. And then I said, well, I don't fully perfectly remember the conversation, but we kept on going back and forth until ultimately there were two things or three things that I was like happy to share my editor to
Mhm.
share with my editor. And I said, how about this? And how about this? And then she picked two titles, one for this edition and one for the next. And I was very happy to say that I could actually make good use of my $20 that I had paid for Claude. Now it was time to deliver the piece. And I said, well, listen, this is how I write. You have to feed it, articles. And I said, listen, I write here. Here's my Substack. These are all pieces that I have developed. Now we're writing this piece about, it's specifically about the martial art I do. And I was doing this piece about ukemi, which is rolling, how to, when somebody, you attack someone and that person rejects the attack, applies a technique, and then throws you. Okay.
Mhm.
And that the throwing means that you have to roll so that you don't injure yourself. And I was like, well, Claude, write me 700 words on this in the style of Roxana Gramada, which was, made clear through the uploading of various documents. And it came up with 700 words, and it sounded readable. I was like, oh my God. Again, like you just said before, one word sentences, which kept the pace active. And I was like, oh, something's home. Something's cooking. And and then occasionally there were paragraphs that were really interesting. I remember one in particular. But what I said, and building on the previous point I was making, if you're giving this to someone who has no idea, it looks readable and passable. But if you give it to the expert, there's going to be a million tiny things that are not right. Okay. So I was reading paragraph after paragraph. And first of all, there was quite a bit of hallucination, a lot of examples that, were unreal. But then paragraphs that looked very legit stylistically had mistakes embedded in them, that had to do with the actual technique, and if you're not an expert in martial arts or in that specific martial art, it's going to look like, yeah, that sounds completely right. And I can think of another metaphor for this. And here there's another example and so on and so forth, except it's not true. You know,
Yeah.
you can't hit publish.
I mean, I think that's one of the more terrifying impacts, really, because I think we're going to have, unless we improve how we're teaching media literacy, what are we doing to prevent an entire generation of people from growing up trusting AI as an ultimate source of truth? And I mean, I can already think of a story I read about a teacher who had a student come in and disagree with them on, like, I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was basically a question of geography. It was something where the teacher had knowledge of the outside world that
Mhm.
was objectively factual, and the student had been told something else by his AI, and he would not budge on his point of view that, in fact, ChatGPT was right and this adult employed in the education sector was wrong. So I think that's a really interesting point when you say, it was embedded within facts, but actually incorrect.
Yeah, absolutely. And with my case, at least there's a happy ending because I read what Claude made and I said, well, I'm going to do better than Claude. So I sat down and for 2 hours, that's how long it took. And I came up with 700 words that were way better than Claude. And then, my editor was happy. I also fed it back into Claude and I said, hey, this is what I came up with.
Mhm.
And Claude was gracious enough to say, oh, I learned the lesson. Your version is way wiser, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean,
Mhm.
use it at least as a fake competition for next time, for something to motivate myself to write better, a better version of, you know. But
Mm.
I can think of a million ethical issues, well, not a million, but a few where working with an AI would not be a good idea. But let's not go there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we can come to that too when we get to the headlines. But I'd love to know. So I'm going to give an example for myself, Roxana, and then I'd love to know your equivalent. Because when it comes to where humans add value, I was thinking about the work that I do, which is very, very much about adding upsells, and the communication with a client after they have just made a purchase. And it's a very high potential time because, they've got their credit card ready, they're in a buying mood, they obviously already believe in the person that they're buying from. And so they are primed to make an additional purchase. And yet there's, it's almost a vulnerable state. And I think if you were to ask AI, like, what should my upsell be here? You might get an answer. But there are also times when I would say, actually, we don't want to make an upsell here. So specifically, I'm thinking of an example where a client was selling a $2,000 online course, and the upsell, the next step offer that we wanted people to take was into a $10,000 mastermind. But that's not an upsell that we want to make at the point of purchase because the psychological state of somebody who has just invested $2,000 in a course isn't like, and now I want, and now I want to add a mastermind on it. They want to get results with that initial purchase. Their mindset is very much about like, how am I? I'm excited. I am proud of myself for, taking this step in my professional development. And so I think that there's a big difference between the kind of tactical rules that AI can understand around, seducible moments after somebody makes a purchase, you should offer them an upsell versus the human understanding of nuance of what is too pushy, what is appropriate.
Mhm.
And I think that's, not only is that human, but that's really going to vary from human to human, what different business owners are comfortable pitching their clients at different points, what your audience is open to based on their needs, their budgetary considerations. So that was something where I saw, when I was thinking, like, why would somebody hire me versus having a GPT of my IP? That's one of those nuanced situations where we really need a human understanding of human emotions, because that plays such a big part in our purchase behavior and in our decision making.
Absolutely. So I understand that. So for instance, let's say there's a course creator out there who's selling a 2000 ticket, like a course that's generally going to be between 8 to 10 weeks. Is that
Yep,
standard? Yeah, pretty much. So if you're experienced and in it, you know that there's a certain point in that customer journey where you start talking about the mastermind, at least to introduce the idea. And the need for it has to be apparent before you actually say, well, there's also this ticket, but it's not for now. And what
absolutely.
I think is that no GPT or no AI could compensate that that relationship and the trust that has to emerge first.
Exactly. And I
Mhm.
mean, so in my own framework, I have signs to look for when that's appropriate. I have phases of what you would want to introduce at which point in the buyer experience. But I really do think it comes down to each business owner, their audience. And so far, I would say that's the kind of nuance that I don't think AI can, without a lot of back and forth, can accurately advise people on.
Fair enough. That sounds right to me. And I know that if you were talking to an engineer instead of a messaging strategist, they'd be like, so what are the words? So what are the touch points? What are the situations? How can we streamline the process? How can we come up with prompts or whatever, flags that say, oh my God, introduce a mastermind. Um, And maybe that lies somewhere in the future. We don't
Hmm.
know. For where we are right now, the quality of the conversation needs to be very so I find that trust is a very vulnerable thing, and I'm wondering, Katie, if you are still there.
I'm still here. I don't know why I've frozen on my blinky face.
But it's gonna come back in a
Let's
minute.
see if I can.
Mhm. We're experiencing with things that can go wrong.
Oh, I see you. And now hopefully I'm gonna come back.
Mhm. There you are. There.
Okay.
Uh-huh. So I was just saying that I find that trust is a very fragile thing, and there's a way to to deal with it properly, which is to be honest and authentic in the conversation. There.
And so when you're in your work, Roxana, with messaging and helping people identify that unique value proposition, would you say that the emotional kind of your ability to read and respond to your client's emotions is what makes you irreplaceable?
That's a very good question. And I have had that conversation many times. Particularly when you talk with someone who is very AI enthusiastic. Okay. So let's say I have all these CPO friends that are like, okay, so we're going to take your process and we're going to streamline it with the help of AI. You just give me your phases here and we're going to turn this into, a prompt. And I'm not sure that's possible. For me, particularly for my specific kind of expertise, I would say it isn't. And here's why. Um, it really, if you remember Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey. So there is this guy that's talking to, we're going to say an AI, okay, all alone on a spaceship. Now, if you are that kind of person and find that conversation relevant and you get excited over it, then maybe you can just do everything with an AI. In fact, I have a very dear friend who has been loving AI for at least, I'm going to say 5 years now. I hope I'm not wrong, okay? He's been experimenting with Jasper forever and loving it, but ultimately, he has never used the output because he's in love with the actual relationship, with
Okay,
how he
interesting.
communicates with AI, right? And that is a use in itself. And
Hmm.
it should not be neglected, really, okay? Now, if you are the kind of person that wants to use the actual output, that's where things get tricky. So between two humans, there is a certain finesse in the space, just like you noticed about your post-sales planning. Okay. A lot is loaded in the nuance, a lot is loaded in the unsaid, and maybe Claude, being smart, can pick up on some of it. Let me give you an example. So I fed my process, the description of my process into Claude, and I said, well, now we're going to come up with a framework. Can you give me a framework? And the first thing he said is, well, Roxana, it looks like what you're doing here is very personal and that it almost looks like you are using the value of integrity and that you have a very strong connection between positioning and integrity, and that should be what you go out in the world with. And that's true. But then it went on and said, and maybe there's no way you can come up with a framework for this. Maybe this is not something that can be, systematized. And then I said, well, you're not being very helpful. We're trying to come up with a framework here. And said, yeah, absolutely. You are right. Here is my suggestion. Now, if you want to be the advocate of frameworks and processes, any person who does intelligence related work will have the same basic consulting process. We do induction and research, we have insights, we do ideation, we write, and then we test. Everybody does the same thing. How the nuances we bring to the table, that varies. Now, you and I being trained in conversion copywriting, we're very familiar with it and have our own magic sauce on top of it. But ultimately, the stages are the same. We may choose a specific section of it. We may have a specific approach. We may have a specific kind of client, but ultimately, the process is the same. Now, when you deal with businesses of one or entrepreneurs or people who sell their own intelligence, you find, or I find in my experience, that their emotional motivations are very important,
Mm.
which means that many times their decision making will be motivated by emotions, even if they're not aware of it. Okay. And telling them, listen, this is an emotionally driven decision is not going to make much of a difference. They're not going to choose differently. This is just something you have to work with, unless you can bring to the conversation something that's going to release a new point of view, which is essentially what copywriters do. Okay. Which is essentially what we do with people. We take them from unaware, they have a problem, to most aware with high intent. That's the job. Okay. So again, you want to play the advocate of processes? Yeah, absolutely. Everything is going to be unaware to most aware with high intent. But the finesse of it in the space is going to be such that sometimes you're not going to be able to find the process. Because you see, when I hear somebody talk, there will be something in what they say that's going to say, oh, this word is loaded.
Mhm.
Ask more here. What if this? What if that? And that I find hard to systematize.
Mhm.
There.
I think that's so interesting. And what came up to me just when you said that about belief shifting within your work with your clients, when you hear, sometimes you've already sold them, but the process of selling them on your way of doing something continues throughout your work together. And one thing is that your clients don't live in a vacuum. Like just because they're working with you doesn't mean that they're not hearing other things or, working with other coaches. And so that can always shift where you are, your framework. You can't just say like step one, step two, step three, step four, because you do also have to react to the vacillations of your client and the other input that they have been hearing, and you need to respond to that. I'm getting
Absolutely.
moving along. I think this has been such an interesting conversation, Roxana. But we're at almost quarter to the hour. I'd love to get through. We had three other topics. Let's try and see if we can spend 5 minutes each. Number one, can AI ever really sound like you? What's your take?
Possibly in the future, not right now.
Hmm.
I don't want to embarrass AI, but months ago, which is light years ago in AI, right? I said, well, say this, say it like Jerry Seinfeld, whom I adore and worship. Okay.
Yeah.
And the way that it did is that it placed a on top of it.
Yes.
Which is we can both agree is a very poor iteration of Jerry Seinfeld. So not right now, maybe in the future. I don't know what the lawyers will decide about, uh, you know, um, all this intelligence that we build and capitalize on. Um, and probably some litigations will have to happen, and some real money will have to change hands until we settle on that issue. But for now, I'm going to say possibly.
Mm. And so I totally agree that right now, it doesn't sound like, I mean, I went to Claude, then I went back to ChatGPT because I had such a history with ChatGPT that it knew more about me, and it was better than Claude at pulling between conversations, remembering threads between projects. So I would say so far, just because of that history, ChatGPT is currently better at sounding like me because it has more material to work with. Does still require quite a bit of editing for me to feel comfortable publishing something that was co-written with ChatGPT. So I'm curious, like, do you feel motivated to train AI better? Or when you want something to sound like you, are you rather going with its first version and then editing in the Roxana after the
Mm.
fact?
That's a very tricky question, and I'm very curious to know your answer. I'm going to say I am mildly motivated. right now.
Mm,
I will use or at least skim through what is giving me. If there's something that's really interesting, I will pick it up. But I'm not there where I'm like, I'm not taking time to really train it. And, of course, things are very different. When I was working in the media business and I was reading newspapers and magazines all the time because, I was pretending it's part of my job, which it was, but I also loved it. There was this very interesting analysis of the media business. And we have to take that with a grain of salt because things are very different now with AI. But many times it doesn't pay off to be the first,
mm,
it pays off to be the second. Okay. So when things are wildly innovative to the point where you can't really make money with it, yeah, it may be that you're waiting for the true use of the technology to be fully emergent until you can make use of it commercially. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case with AI, but I tend to not invest into something that's changing very drastically from one day to the next. What's
mhm.
your take? I'm very curious, Katie.
I would say similar. I feel I might have medium willingness to train it. Primarily, I've done so by, uploading past content written by me, but actually, you touched on this a bit earlier. One thing I've started doing now is, ultimately the workflow goes like this, and this kind of gets us into our next conversation about what we're experimenting with in our own workflows, is that I get ChatGPT or Claude to help me with the first draft. Maybe we go back and forth a couple times where I give it some pointers or share a piece of relevant writing that is 100% original. But once I take it out of ChatGPT and I have written my own version and edited in my own voice, then I give it back and I say, um, I think I said like update your understanding of my brand, update your memory of my brand voice in accordance with like the changes that I made to this document. So basically internalize the revisions that I've made and make this the standard going forward so that I don't have to make the same edits all the time. And so that I feel is like because I'm already doing the editing, it's not a bunch of additional labor to really work with the AI to get it nailed on my voice, but it's like, okay, if I've already done that editing anyway, you might as well learn from the changes that I made so that the pieces start ideally coming out um, a bit closer to how I want them to sound.
That's good, actually, Katie. I'm taking that off of this. Thank you.
So,
Mhm.
all right, I'm gonna go back to our slides as we keep our tempo. We were here, we covered where humans add value now and whether AI can really sound like you. When it comes to our own workflows, I mentioned my new revision protocol. What have you experimented with recently, Roxana?
Oh, I'm still experimenting on several fronts, but to quote one of it is, can it actually come up with good content for LinkedIn? Okay. Because we've both been going through this book about, create once, distribute forever.
Awesome.
Um,
Yep.
and yeah, and the point is it actually true? I mean, I am sitting on many wonderful emails that people have loved at the time, can I still use good bits from there? I'm wondering. I am sitting on like a 400 document with content ideas. Every time I'm writing something, I'm looking through it, and it's kind of like playing with my toys, okay? But can we actually make use of AI? So this is something that I'm wondering. I wouldn't publish just about anything. And the truth is, when I did feed this into I think it was ChatGPT at the time. I don't remember. And I said, come up with a Facebook or a LinkedIn post for it. I was not happy with the result. And when I tested it, it didn't test well. So I'm not going to say, oh my God, it's not good. Here's proof it's not working. I'm going to say we're not quite there yet, or maybe not this way. Especially when, as writers, we want to make sure that, the work is outstanding. Yeah. So there's a certain attachment, I think, to the output.
Mhm. I just want to say this isn't really AI related, but I love that you said when I tested it, it didn't test well, rather than like when I posted it, people didn't like it. I think that's such a great mindset to have around testing content and seeing what the response is. Um, yeah, I mean, I like I said about the revision thing is one thing I'm experimenting with right now. I also have been using So within Claude, I have a project specifically around positioning.
Uh-huh.
And then I have a second project around marketing, and then another one around business coaching, because I found that the tone that I wanted to be responded to in was very different when I was working through kind of cerebral tasks like minuscule, or positioning shifts versus wanting to be encouraged, or wanting a bit of accountability from like a business coaching AI, and then wanting just like churn out the content ideas from like marketing AI. So I think that was one of the things I was experimenting with that ultimately drove me back then to ChatGPT, because I got frustrated with trying to hold the different strings of which conversation was I having where, and Claude's inability to really have a centralized understanding of who I am and what I wanted from it. Um, I would say like, remember I told you about this, and it would have no memory of something because it turned out I had had that conversation within a different project, versus I find ChatGPT is better able to pull from other conversations. And yeah, I guess so I've been experimenting with kind of segmenting my use
Mhm.
cases
Mhm.
versus having them uh having a more kind of having an AI tool that has a more holistic understanding of my business.
Mhm.
Um, and that has been the biggest factor for me in really doing everything within one platform versus using individual tools, like tools within your different SaaS, AI within your different SaaS tools, or AI within other softwares that I'm using. I'm less motivated because I have to teach it so much just to get anything that I like the sound of.
Mhm. I love that you're saying that you have three separate conversations and you want three different approaches to it, but then you also want a bird's eye view. Okay.
Mhm.
And I also love that you're having an ongoing conversation about your positioning. I think this is one of the best things that anyone can do about their own business, to go back to the conversation about who humans add value, because um, even when the value is very clear, you need to feed it with feedback, how your clients actually experience the value that they're getting from you. And then I think that needs to go back into the loop,
Mhm.
um, I think that's a very good thing. And I happen to have an ongoing conversation about positioning too. Um, but I'm going to probably take you on for that. So you said positioning, business coaching, and then the third one was,
Was a content topic ideas, and then content having a content calendar. So wanting the content ideas to map onto my sales goals for the rest of the quarter is just something where I tend to create a plan on paper and then forget about it, and then a month goes by, I create a new plan. So I wanted a centralized place for that to live. And I wanted the AI to be able to remind me, hey, remember, it's the end of October. You said you were going to be talking about this because of this reason.
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, makes sense. So gradually we're kind of downloading our calendars into AI, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
we are. Yeah.
So, with all of these different use cases that we've talked about, I think that this last little segment I had planned for us, Hot or Not AI and Headlines of the Week, is kind of going to blow. I mean, we have 6 minutes left, but I think it's really going to open up this conversation, because we have been speaking about this really from the point of view of online business owners, marketing and messaging professionals who work within a space where there has been widespread AI adoption, where it's basically expected that we are using AI every day. And I am always amazed um, when I come across people in the real world who are, for example, very against AI,
Mhm.
who are, not interested in using AI. And let's talk about the following headlines. And I think just kind of give our gut reactions and maybe our point of view on the wider social impact of AI beyond our work as messaging pros. So I'm going to exit here. This is the straight, I Googled AI news
Yes.
and this is what we found. So, top four stories all about this idea that AI assistants misrepresent news content.
Mhm.
What's your initial just like gut reaction, gut response to that, Roxana?
Oh, the minute you said, oh my God, AI in the headlines, I thought about this, and it's not, I don't think it's this week. It's probably 2 weeks old. There was this huge report developed by a big
Oh,
four, a big four company. I'm not going to say the name because, I don't want to be wrong. But there was this big four report that had been, commissioned by the government of fill-in country.
Australia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Australia for $500,000, was it?
I'm just gonna pull it up. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and it had been, withdrawn and money refunded because there were hallucinations found in the report.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
So,
big company to refund the Australian government after AI generated hallucinations found in a $440,000 report is the
yeah,
headline.
yeah, which goes to say that A, the corporations have been using AI. B, it has not been checked. C, nobody asked the question that you were asking as an academic editor, as in what does this actually mean? What does all this fluff actually come down to? And D, there are commercial implications and also, reputational implications. I mean, you're not going to look that good in front of anyone the next time you want to sell your 500,000 report.
Yeah, imagine what a challenge they've just given their sales team who now has to address that huge objection when you're trying to close a $500 million deal.
Yeah, so are you giving me a $100 subscription a month kind
Mhm.
of output with your brand name on top and asking me 500,000? Because this is great business. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
now that objection is floating around for everyone in the market.
Yeah. Okay, so hot or not, Meta partners with Blue Owl Capital on 27 billion AI data center project.
I'm going to let you go first.
I'm going to say not. I think that this is one of those things. As a business owner, has AI helped me? Absolutely. As a human who lives in the world, does the concept of the water use and the impact of these huge data centers terrify me? 100%.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's, I would not.
Okay. Well, and I see why you're saying that. What I want to hear, because this thing about the data centers and the water consumption and all that news around how every time we say the word please, I don't know how many cubic meters get wasted, et cetera, or how many, how unecological or how unearthly for the planet, unfriendly for the planet is to stream movie on Netflix, okay? Yeah, these kinds of news are not going to be that powerful when the consumption is so pronounced, okay?
800 million monthly users of ChatGPT this month. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's absolutely frightening. So what you're looking for is some kind of context. So I'm not going to say anything on this. I hope that there is also a pass available because I'm going to take it.
Okay. All right. So, I don't quite know what this one means. Meta overhauls its legacy AI operations. Any thoughts there?
Um, No, I don't know what it means because again, you need more context. So my first observation about most of AI related news, and I actually said this to an AI entrepreneur, somebody who made an exit in AI. I said, listen, my number one observation about the AI space is that most people who are making any money about AI are people who are talking about AI. And
Mhm.
he said, that's fair. Now, the second observation is that most news about AI because there's a huge need for headlines with AI, right? Oh my God, it's cool. Put it in the headlines. What do we say?
Like
But
us
do
having this topic this week.
but do you have anything to actually say? Okay, so let's try this. AI can help the environment even though it uses tremendous energy. Here are 5 ways how. Okay, that plays to our fear that we're going to, destroy the planet with AI. Okay, maybe I want to read that. Obviously, it's very helping people understand. Okay,
Mhm.
now TriNet to launch AI-powered suite of offerings to empower SMBs with personalized, data-driven HR support. Again, if I was specifically in this category, maybe this
Mhm.
would be relevant, but to me, this sounds like just a launch. Somebody who
Mhm.
just launched. It's a product launch. Is it
Yeah, I would say
relevant?
to me what this the alarm bells that go off for me with this one is about the as yet unregulated adoption of AI in large corporations and what are we going to do about the massive layoffs that are coming in various sectors
Mhm,
um, around the world. So yeah, I agree. And part of it is like PR, like this really reads like a press release about this product, but again, we have this question of like, what does the human impact look like beyond just our businesses?
mhm. I love that you just pulled out this news and we're looking at it. Excellent idea. I think we should do more of that.
Cool. Okay, well, we are at 11:01. Do you want to do one more or do you want to wrap up?
I mean, I'm going to do one
Okay,
more.
wait. Okay, let's do this one because this is a fun use case.
Uh-huh.
A news anchor debuts on UK's Channel 4 in a stunt proving the dangers of artificial intelligence. So I think similar to that AI actress, right?
Mhm.
They're although in this case, I guess with a point of proving the dangers of artificial intelligence.
Now, and you kind of feel how hard at work those publicists must have been, okay? Coming up with ideas, okay? Because if you were, and I used to be in the PR space, I would always do jobs at the conference, at the intersection of marketing and sales and PR and corporate affairs. That would always be me, right? And just imagine what it's like to have to, because the news is what? There's a new anchor for Channel
Mhm,
4. Okay. Now, how do you get that to be in variety? Because quite frankly, Channel 4 is big, but it's not that big.
mhm,
Okay. And variety, I mean, it's mostly film, not television. So it's got to be hugely competitive to get news for that. And then some PR agency sat down and said, listen, guys, we're going to have to deliver appearances in I don't know how many outlets. Figure it out. Oh my God, what's the trend? Play the trend. AI. Okay, can we come up with a stunt?
mhm.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying this is how it happened, but I can completely.
No, I think you're totally right because I think there was so much conversation around that. I forget her whole name, the Tilly AI actress.
Mhm.
Um, was definitely trending in terms of show business news. So you can see, I love getting your PR background coming through here too, of that how those publicists might have been jumping on
Mhm.
um, that trend.
But I have one myself, which came in an email. I adore email, okay? And
Want
this
to
came,
share
I'm not going to share because my
your
desktop is
emails?
way too
Yeah.
messy, but I'm going to read this to you, okay? And
Mhm.
I promise you I had fun, okay? Here it comes. The first one is OpenAI solves in inverted commas unsolved math problems in parentheses by finding the solutions online, which gives me the creeps. Okay.
Yeah.
And then and then the other one was AWS goes down, takes half the internet with it. And
Mm.
then underneath, Amazon's cloud crashed for 3 hours Monday, killing Snapchat, Reddit, and Perplexity. Turns out the entire internet runs on Jeff Bezos's laptop, which I found to be brilliant writing. I don't
Mhm.
know if it's
Yeah,
AI
that is
or
good.
not, but whoever wrote that, very good.
Yeah. So with those headlines, Roxana, are you talking about the impact of like whether or not they're AI written or what AI, the news behind the headline.
Uh, I think both are actually relevant, okay? First, that AWS could go down and three different AIs are no longer working. That's huge because it
Mhm.
just means that everything we do could
Yeah.
go away like this if somebody pulls the plug. It just so happens that this is the way
So,
things work,
yeah.
right? And we're not exposed to it because we haven't had the power cuts or the interruptions or the disruptions or whatever you want to call them. That's number one. Issue number two is whoever wrote that, that's good writing. If AI came up with it, I'm sure that there was a human involved.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I mean, here's the test. Do you want to read it or not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, gee, give me a fucking break. Pardon my French, okay? Or is it like, oh, yes, I want to read more. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah,
Yeah. What you just said about how that's good writing, whether or not, whether it's pure AI or whether it's pure human writing or AI assisted human writing, reminds me of the woman doing social media for Gavin Newsom. I want to have her name, so I'm
hmm
gonna Google her right now. Um, she is amazing. And she has, why are we, here we go. Um, the way that she has used his social media platforms to kind of push back against Trump has been, I think, like art almost. I think it's something that historians will look at. And that is whether she, like feeds a situation into AI and then lets it give some ideas and then somebody, a human revises it or makes sure it's ready to go out. I don't blame her either way, but there was definitely, you can tell, human genius behind the strategy itself,
yeah,
that I think is just really impressive.
absolutely. And you know what? I'm
Camilla,
gonna
here
research it. Please put her name in the chat because I was not, I've loosely followed Gavin Newsom, so I'm very happy that you're saying that
we go.
because
Camille, yeah.
hmm
Oh,
Okay.
okay,
Well,
I'm losing you, so I'm gonna close this window and we're gonna wrap things up. Well, look, there we go. We were a little bit late to start, so we've done almost exactly an hour. Mm, are we
how do
good?
you?
I'm not hearing you, but I'm gonna hope that you come back.
I'm here. I'm here.
It's me. Okay. All right, well, let's wrap things up for the YouTube stream, and then Roxana, maybe you and I can do a little debrief. But thanks so much for joining us for episode one of Hot Copy, where we talked about AI. And if you, I hope you'll leave us a comment below. You can follow at Post Sale Profit Studio. Roxana, where can
You're kind of breaking
people?
up, but I'm assuming that you're asking me where people can find me.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so LinkedIn, Roxana Gramada on LinkedIn, and also on Substack again, Roxana Gramada. And my website is also becomingwords.com. A bit outdated, a new iteration will be out soon.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, really, really enjoyed talking to you and hope that we'll be back for more.
Thank you, Katie.
All right, let's see.